Trust me, I know the title and the thumbnail say 10 oldest games, but don't worry, I have 14. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and these are the, 14 oldest games in my collection. More specifically, it's 10 games. There are 10 of the oldest games I have in my collection, and then 4 semi-caveats that I'm throwing in as well. We'll go through all of them. And to be very specific, this is not based on the year of the game. This is not like, oh, I have a game from 1976. No. This is the 10 games that have lasted the longest in my collection, excluding chess. So 15, I guess. 15 games. Because I still have a copy of chess, and I've had a copy of chess for as long as I can recall. And so we're going to exclude that for the purposes of this conversation. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into it. Although I guess let's actually talk a bit more and then dive into it. Basically, I got into gaming late 2011, early 2012. I had played a bunch of games over the years, and I'd played a whole bunch of stuff growing up, and all those different things, and I had played a Game of Thrones, actually, the original Game of Thrones, first edition from Fantasy Flight. I had played that one time because my brother liked the books. I played Catan, as many of you have. I played Risk 2210. I had a bunch of gaming experiences along the way, apples to apples, whatever, all those typical stuff. But then, in 2011, I started drifting into board games, into the more designer board games, the way we engage with them now. And to that end, these are the 10 oldest games from all the games I've acquired over the years. Two of these games are from my very first board game purchase ever, and then there's one that predates my first game purchase ever, and then after that it's just me going by memory. And that's a factor here, because while most of these titles I'm pretty sure are in the right spot, I'm not 100% certain. At least 5 of these I know for certain have their spot in this collection, in this list. The other 5 are kind of caveats, like I'm pretty sure that's what I had, I'm pretty sure that's the oldest one after having gone through my collection and figuring it out. So this is going to be 5 actual, definitely not even a question, and then 5 like pretty sure they're the oldest. That's enough talking. Let's go ahead and start this off, starting off with the 4 exceptions. So we have chess, that's 1, we have 4 more, and then we have our top 10 list. So, the exceptions are as follows. We have Winter Kingdom. Winter Kingdom is a 2020 title, but really I'm semi-including that one because if you actually include Kingdom Builder I've had for a very long time. I got rid of Kingdom Builder because I prefer Winter Kingdom, but they're adjacent enough that I thought it was worth mentioning here, meaning Kingdom Builder would have been in my top 10 oldest lasting games. And the next 3 fall into similar categories. We have The Resistance, which I got as part of my second gaming order ever, meaning my first orders that I ever placed, I have some records from. I got from eBay, from Miniature Market, and from Cool Stuff Inc. I placed 3 orders as part of my first orders, and then I placed from Cool Stuff Inc. a second order shortly after that had the Resistance in that order. I no longer have Resistance, but I have Quest. I never really kept Resistance. I went to Resistance Avalon, but then I went from there to Quest, which is the newest version of that. So again, it's another kind of semi-tangentially related to one of my oldest purchases ever. Then from there, we have Pandemic Legacy. You see, Pandemic was in my very first order ever. I can't remember if it's Miniature Market or what's it called, or Cool Stuff Inc. I'd have to check that up. But it was part of my very first set of games that I ever bought. And Pandemic has left the collection a long time ago. Not that long ago. It actually lasted a decent amount. It left a year or 2 ago. But I still love the Pandemic system, and I still engage with the Pandemic system. I just played Pandemic Fall of Rome. I recently played Pandemic Wrath of the Lich King. I love the Pandemic Legacy games. So I still am engaged and invested in the Pandemic system while not actually having Pandemic itself. And then the last one in this category is Libertalia. Libertalia is an interesting exception. That was part of my very first purchase ever from Cool Stuff Inc. I have no idea how it's made its way into that list. I don't know what I was thinking or why I got that or what stood out about that. I mean, I just dove in into the world of board games head first. I have no clue why Libertalia would have made my first purchase. And for context, Resistance is a 2009 title, Libertalia is a 2012 title, Pandemic Legacy is a 2008 title, and Libertalia is a game that I eventually played, had it for a while, eventually got rid of it, and then I recently got back Libertalia Winds of Galecrest, and so it gets a kind of asterisk because I have it back now in a different form. It's an asterisk. From there, let's go ahead and dive into the actual top 10. The actual top 10, starting off with number 10, and for these I have boxes. I probably should have told you that I have boxes for these. We have Kemet, Blood, and Sand. Now again, this is also technically a re-implementation. Technically, I had Kemet, not Kemet, Blood, and Sand. Kemet's going to be a 2012 title that I picked it up almost as soon as I could. In fact, technically, technically Cyclades predates Kemet in my collection. But Cyclades predates it with multiple asterisks and caveats that have it not on this list. Because I got Cyclades, I never tabled Cyclades, I got rid of Cyclades, years later I got back Cyclades and played Cyclades, and now I have Cyclades in my collection. Versus Kemet, I played in 2012. I remember playing this in 2012. I remember my friend had gotten a copy, I believe, and we had played his copy, and then I immediately picked up my own copy. Whatever the reason, the way, the method, we loved this game. It was the first game I ever played in the Cyclades, Inis trilogy, Yucatan apparently now as well. All of those games. It's my first one I played from this set of games, and I loved it from the very first time I played it. It was so ridiculously good, and it's still so ridiculously good. This is technically Blood and Sand. I'm counting this. This is similar enough that I'm definitely counting them as being the same game. It's basically the same game with minor updates to the rules. I think Kemet's fantastic. When I was going through my list and I saw that this is one of the oldest games I had, I realized that was true. There are many other area control games I started with. In fact, the very first one, once you exclude Game of Thrones from the mix, the very first one is probably Shogun. Shogun from Fantasy Flight is a game I had for years. It's a game I frequently debate as to whether I should get it back. I really enjoyed the area control that game gave me, but Kemet knocked it out of the water, like completely and totally. Kemet became my go-to area control game. Kemet is a game that someone else in our game group liked it so much they got into a fight over it, like an actual real fight, not like a little nitpicky thing. We'll talk about that another time. Kemet's a fantastic game. It's an absolutely fantastic game. It's lasted in my collection since 2012. I have ranked this list, by the way, these top 10, I've ranked these in order of least oldest to the actual oldest, and Kemet is the least oldest of all of these, but it's definitely up there. In fact, coming in at 2012, this is the latest year. The next thing I have after this is 2011. That's going to be the next one I have after this. But let's go ahead and dive into the next one. Coming in at number 9, we have Troyes. Troyes at number 9, or otherwise known as Troyes, depending on how you pronounce it. This is one that it also went through a period where I got rid of and got back, but a very short period. Troyes is a game that I adore. I love this game. I love tabling it. I love the Euro engine it provides. It's a 2010 title, and it's one that I got it. I can't remember why I got it. Some of these games I don't remember why. I remember Kemet, I was very compelled. I watched Tom Vassel's review of it. I was very pulled in by it. I seemed to love it. I dove straight in. Troyes, I have no idea why I got it. I don't know if it was a review. I don't know if it was an instinct purchase. I don't know the reason or the why. All I know is I played it, I tabled it, and I loved it. Fast forward a few years, and this is when I first got into gaming. A relevant part of this is that most of my games when I first got into board gaming were either directly with my wife, or alternatively with a small circle of friends, of which they weren't really necessarily gamers. Okay, so a lot of the games on this list, in fact, basically all but one of the games on this list are games that I initially played primarily at 2. Kemet's going to be one of 2 exceptions. I know I just said this one. This 2. Kemet is one that I played at a friend's house. I played his copy. I had one other friend who was into gaming at the time, and we never really had regularly scheduled game nights. It just occasionally could maybe possibly happen, and in the case of Kemet, it did. The rest of these, I have one party game on this list, and then after that, they're all games I played 2 players. I got rid of Troyes because I thought it was a really, really good game, but it also didn't thrive as much as a 2-player experience, and so eventually I got rid of it. I liked it a lot, don't get me wrong, but then I was talking to a friend about it, and when my game group started up in, I want to say 2013, like late 2013 I think is when I officially started playing games every single week by just starting a game group, inviting my friends, and then from there on in I started playing games with other people, not just with my wife and an occasional one-off. And I got back Troyes with the expansion, with the Ladies of Troyes. And I got that. I have the bonus cards as well. I've upgraded. I have coins and foam inserts and all these different things in here. I love this game. In fact, this is one of those games where I kind of wanted the Luxified version, although what I have now is still pretty solid. It's a great game. I'm not talking heavily about the games here. I'm doing a terrible job talking about that. I'm talking more about my experiences with the games and why they stuck around or what I do with them. Kemet is an area control game. Lots of powers and abilities. Troyes is a dice placement Euro where you can steal each other's dice. Very, very solid experience. One that I really enjoy and has stuck around for quite some time. Moving on to number 8. Number 8 is Dominion, which has been upgraded to this gigantic box. One Sharp Joe is the company you can get this from on Etsy. I have this for Marvel Champions. I have it for Dominion. This is Dominion. Dominion is a game that not only did I get rid of it, many of these games, you'll see a trend here. I frequently turn over games, which also means the games that have stuck with me for 10 years, many of these, not all of these, have at some point gone through a process of me having gotten rid of them. One more on this list, I think, is going to fall into that category. But Dominion's a game where I got rid of it at one point because I love the game. We got all the expansions. My wife and I played this a lot. It is the grandfather of deck building games. Yes, deck building was done before Dominion, but Dominion is the game that I think popularized the concept, the genre. And it's such a good experience. And my wife and I really loved it. And we played and we got it and we just tabled it again and again and again and again. At a certain point, I realized I wasn't really tabling it anymore, and so I got rid of it. And I regretted it within like a matter of weeks, to the point that I hunted down the exact copy I had gotten rid of and got it back. The exact copy, because I had everything sleeved. I had sleeves within sleeves. It's the way I store my collection. Literally, sleeves within sleeves. I got my copy back. It still doesn't hit the table that often. It doesn't. But when it does, I'm reminded that it should hit the table often. Whenever it does hit the table, I'm happy I own it. This is one where I finally stopped picking up new expansions. That's one thing I did in terms of self-control. I stopped picking up new expansions a few years back and haven't really bothered to try. Until I play it more, I don't need them. I have so much content and so many pair-ups and matchups and just variability to the experience that I certainly don't need more cards. I want them, but not enough to actively go through the process of hunting them down. But Dominion is one that I'm happy to own. It's one that I'm happy to have available for when I want to play a 2 or 3 player game. I don't like it at 4 quite as much. I think Dominion is fantastic, and I'm very happy that it's been around for quite some time. Number 7 is the last one on this list. No, that's not true. I lied again. There's 2 more on this list that I got rid of. The second one of those 2 is going to be number 7, coming in as a 2008 title. And by the way, Troyes 2010, Dominion's 2008. Le Havre is another 2008 title. Le Havre, if you'll excuse me as I pick up this box from the floor. Le Havre is from Uwe Rosenberg, and has always been my favorite Uwe Rosenberg game, which is a title it still holds to this day. Le Havre is amazing. It's fantastic. And we went through a phase, my wife and I, where we started diving into Uwe Rosenberg games, these heavy Euro experiences, and we started getting every single one we can get our hands on. And we love them. A lot of them. Not Agricola. She did not like feeding her people. But every other Uwe game, we've gotten Agricola 2 players big and small. We've gotten At the Gates of Liang. We had Le Havre. We had Or at Labor. We have every single one we can get our hands on at the time. Since then, he's come out with a whole bunch more. And we loved those experiences. But also, over time, we started getting rid of them. And we started getting rid of this one and that one, and slowly moving away from those heavier Euros for a time. And then we got some back, specifically Glass Road and Le Havre, the 2 that we got back. It's a process of trying to figure out our tastes in gaming. And while we love Le Havre, and we always did, at a certain point we just drifted away from that genre. We got it back. I still love it. I still think it's fantastic. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. To a certain extent, the reason I got rid of it is you can fall into certain repetitive patterns, especially as when we were playing 2-player games exclusively, and it's just the 2 of us playing the same games again and again. We found ourselves drifting into certain patterns in terms of what you have to do in Le Havre to win. The way you get to those points is still nuanced. The buildings you use, the special buildings you have mixed into the game, there's still a lot of nuance and strategy as far as how you get there, but at a certain point, certain strategies, and I think in many of his older games, I don't know as much about his newer ones, but his older ones that we played a lot more, they definitely had certain predominant strategies that were essential components in order to win. Again, lots of other game factors around at the same time, but certain strategies. I don't play Le Havre enough anymore for that to be an issue. I play Le Havre infrequently. Similar with many of my older titles, they're a reminder of amazing, incredible games I've played. Games I'm happy to dive back into and see my experiences with them now. There's no major content expansions. We do have the bonus Le Grand Jambo expansion here. It's more special cards, more variability to shift up the experience. I wish that they had more of those in each game. Le Havre is a fantastic game. A fantastic game. Got rid of it. Got it back. No real regrets. From there we get to the other game that falls into the party genre, the one that I played with other people, specifically with friends. Coming in at number 6, the 6th oldest game in my collection, is Dixit. The box is literally falling apart. This is just completely strapped. That over there is completely messed up. This is back when they had the original Dixit Odyssey, the one that accounted for like 8 players or 12 players. We have that in the box. Not that we ever play this game with 12 players. Neither pre-COVID nor post-COVID. We don't play this game with 12 players. Dixit's fantastic. It's another 2008 title. 2008, by the way, I believe is the most popular year on all the games I have. Dixit's fantastic. It's a party game that has been around for a very long time. Since 2008. It's a party game that's been in my collection, I want to say, since 2012. It was one of the first games I picked up in terms of the batches of games. I don't remember exactly where I picked this one up, but I have specific memories of playing this game in 2012 because I remember playing this in a house that my friend owned in 2012 and did not own in 2013, so we played this game in 2012. That's what I know. And anything I played in 2012, when I was just getting into the hobby, is already eligible for contention for this list. So Dixit is definitely one of the oldest games in my collection. The other 5, by the way, the next 5 games are ones that I specifically can trace to exact places and time, and those are the ones I'm certain about. Dixit is like, I'm 99% certain it should be on this list. Pretty certain. Dixit's fantastic. We generally play it at 3 to 5 players. We find that's the sweet spot. The more players you have, it can get a little chaotic, it can get a little messy, and if you start going to like the 8 and 12 players, like, I mean, the reason they sunsetted Dixit Odyssey and replaced it by having the cards available but in a standalone smaller expansion is, I think, because most people probably do agree that the scoring rules for Dixit start to get a little chaotic once you go above 6 players. It's still a good game, but I think at that point there are different and better party games to play with a 6 to 12 player count. Dixit is, though, it's a great puzzle. It's a variation of the apples-to-apples concept in which you have a judge and you have other players competing for the judge to try to earn points. But they have a more specific score track that actually is one of the few party games that I really do play trying to win it, just because of the way the score track makes it easy to do so. It provides a nice clock on the game, one that is neither too long nor too short, and it gives you that aspect of just leaning into the chaos of the cards. It's a system and a concept that has been implemented again and again and again in many other games, from Muse to Mysterium to Obscurio to Stella. The most recent run is Stella. There's a bunch of games that have sat there and said, hey, if we put bizarre artwork on cards, we can probably make a game out of this. Detective Club. There are so many games that utilize that concept and try to embrace the concept of chaos within the art to some way drive decision-making or thought processes, and do so in such a clever way. I don't know if Dixit was the first of its kind. I don't. I remember there was Faces before that. You could argue that Faces was a game that did the same thing. I think Dixit does it better, personally. I really enjoy the game. I enjoy Stella as well, the new version and implementation of the game system, but Dixit, I think, is, to me, my preferred of the two. It's just, maybe it's nostalgia speaking. It may well be nostalgia. I like this game. I need to check out the most recent card packs. Again, like Dominion, I kind of, at a certain point, I stopped gathering new card packs. It doesn't fit in the box. I need a new box for it. It's already kind of like just cracking out here. The box is falling apart. I need to replace my Dixit set. We'll figure it out. Coming in at number 5. Number 5 is probably my least favorite game on this list. Not probably. Actually, my least favorite game on this list. Watch me backtrack that in a second. But Jaipur, a 2009 title from GameWorks, was one of my most favorite games at a certain point in time. Not anymore. It's gone down for me. It's gone down significantly. I've cut the insert off so that you can actually sleeve the cards and store them in. So the insert's kind of like cut, if you see over here, just completely shifted up over there. I've had Jaipur in my collection for a while. In fact, I actually got the new version of it to see if my daughter wanted that. She prefers the old art, specifically because of the panda hiding in one of the camels. She likes the panda a lot. Jaipur is a 2-player game that I got a long time ago and really enjoyed. I got it specifically because of how much I loved a different 2-player game that we'll be talking about in a second, and somebody recommended, hey, if you like that, try Jaipur as well, we prefer that. And I got Jaipur, and we love Jaipur. In fact, we did prefer it. They were not wrong. I prefer Jaipur. It was excellent. It was amazing. Also, it lacked the same depth that the other game had. And so, while I loved it, and while we had it for years, eventually, years later, I had tired of playing it, and it wasn't the kind of game I like anymore. The decision-making in Jaipur is excellent. It's a game I recommend, but it's a game that I recommend with the caveat that for me, over enough plays, we found it growing stale for us. I kept it, though, because my daughter loves it. My daughter loves pulling this out, she loves playing with me, and so I continuously table the game because she enjoys it. And I'm happy to play any game that my daughter enjoys, most games that my daughter enjoys. Let's not be too crazy here. So that's Jaipur. 2009 title, been around since 2012 in my collection. And these last 4 are all 2011 titles for me, not actually. Meaning, for me, these are all games I got in 2011 when I first got into gaming. And they are all, well, that's not true. Again, I lied. Again, 3 of them are from 2011. One predates my entire gaming and everything. The next one is Jambo. Jambo is a 2004 title, and it's one that I got in one of my first purchases. I bought this on eBay along with 2 other games, one of which I remember, the other of which I don't. I bought Jambo, I bought Sentinels of the Multiverse, and another game from the same seller. They were selling off their games. I went on eBay. I didn't even know Board Game Geek existed at this point in time, and I bought Jambo, I bought Sentinels of the Multiverse, and I bought another game that for the life of me I can't remember, but is probably not here anymore. And Jambo stuck around for a long time. So did Sentinels, by the way, but Sentinels is gone by now. But Jambo is really, really solid. This is the other one that I did get rid of at a certain point. See, first, at a certain point in time, I realized Jambo wasn't being pulled out and played anymore. And then I got it back a year or 2 ago because my wife mentioned, hey, let's play Jambo. And I was like, what, funny you should say that. We don't own Jambo anymore. Fast forward a few weeks, we own Jambo again. a little ratty, a little dinged up, but it's a 2004 game that hasn't been reprinted in quite some time, so honestly, I'm pretty okay with that. And the card quality, I believe, if I recall correctly, the card quality in this copy is pretty solid, all things considered. I mean, if you look at it, there's definitely some degree of wear to it, but holds up much better than the box is holding up. I probably should sleeve these cards before I play with them again. Jambo is a 2-player game of trading from Ritter Gordorn, and it's a 2-player game of trading that works really well. The goal is to get to 60 money, and you have to do so by trading and engaging and bartering with the system. It does have a certain degree of nostalgia value in my mind. It's one of those games that I love it, and I think it's great, but I'm not as confident recommending it. I'm always wondering, maybe there's just the fact that this is literally from one of the first games I've ever played. My wife and I played this an obscene amount of times. She usually won. She's usually better at cashing in on just the trades, and I like getting all the cards and the people and the animals and all the abilities going, and she's meanwhile just making money. This is a concept she goes with in Dominion as well. But Jambo is... it's a good game. It's part of the Cosmos 2-player line. It's a good game. It's held up for me. I don't know. I don't know if it's just nostalgia. I think it's a good game to start with, but how much of my appreciation for it is nostalgia? I don't know in that part. But yeah, that's Jambo. Solid game. Solid game. Number 3. Number 3 is from my very first purchase of games ever. This is part also as Jambo for that matter. It's just my very first purchase to me is 3 purchases. It's one from Miniature Market, it's one from eBay, it's one from Cool Stuff Inc. All placed at the same time. Long story short, if you haven't heard in a prior video, is we won a PlayStation on an auction. We didn't need or care about a PlayStation, so we sold the PlayStation. And for context of how far back we're going, is a PlayStation 3, and that was cool at the time. So PlayStation 3, we sold it, and we used that, like I think it was $270. We used that to spend completely and totally on board games, which we had recently discovered, and so we made 3 purchases from Miniature Market, Cool Stuff Inc., and eBay, all of which totaled around $240 if I recall correctly, because we did the $100 free threshold on 2, and then eBay was like $40, and so we ended up with a bunch of games, and I consider those 3 my first purchase ever. Back to what I was saying, my number 3 is a 2010 title. A 2010 title that, like Kemet Blood and Sand, I have since replaced with the newer upgraded version. And no, this is not the last one on the list that I've done that for. Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders is a 2010 title that I have since replaced with the revised version of the game. I overall like the change in the revised. I don't love every single one, but very often when that happens, when you have these updates and adjustments, I find that most of the time I like one version more than the other, but never or rarely as a complete binary. That's just better. Seven Wonders is such a good game. I love it. It's just a good game. I like it more than Seven Wonders Duel. I know Seven Wonders Duel is the preferred version, but Seven Wonders Duel doesn't have drafting. That little pattern of cards you have on the board is not the same tension that I enjoy and I get out of a handful of cards and drafting what I want. I love Seven Wonders. I love the puzzle it provides. I love the decision space. I love the simplicity, the elegance, the way it expands when you throw in leaders, and I want to dive into Armada as well, which I have in the box. It's an accessible, rewarding, enjoyable experience that I adore. I'm happy to dive into new content, which is a decision that was made only easier because of the fact that obviously any new expansions they'll have are in the new content, and so that just makes it more of a reason to dive into the new version, past the fact that I like the graphic design better. I don't like the back of the cards better. I like Seven Wonders. I like it a lot. It's been around for quite some time. It's one of those games that I don't think will ever leave my collection. Time will tell. You never really know what will happen, and I always get rid of things that I find aren't being played, but Seven Wonders... I played it, and by the way, for context, I played Seven Wonders 2 players initially. Remember I said most of these games are 2-player games? That includes Seven Wonders. I played this 2 players with the fake 3rd-player situation that is not ideal. And I loved it even then. I loved it in that format, even in the less ideal version. I don't even know if they have a 2-player variant in this anymore. They may have changed it. Did they change the box? Probably some on the backs. I wonder if they changed it because now they have Seven Wonders Duel for 2 players, and they have Seven Wonders for, well, not 2 players. I don't play Seven Wonders 2 players anymore. But I really like the game, and I still table it and play it a lot. Next up, at number 2, we have the Castles of Burgundy. Another game that, like Seven Wonders, that, like Kemet, has been replaced with a new version. Again, you sit around the gaming space long enough, and very often you'll find that many of your classics that you love are replaced and upgraded with newer versions. Better, worse, that's hard to say. But we have the Castles of Burgundy. And the good news, or bad news, depending on who you are and what you value, we're going to have a new version of Castles of Burgundy. So it's not just going to be this one over here. This Castle of Burgundy that we have coming. Apparently, GameFound, Awakened Realms, they're doing a Castles of Burgundy Deluxe Edition. So in case you didn't like the new version, which many people, myself included, did not, I liked it more than the original version, only marginally so. I went back and forth as to which one to keep. I love Castles of Burgundy. It's my favorite Stefan Feld game. It's my second favorite game of all time as of 2021. It's a game that I really, really enjoy and have kept around for a long time. It's my wife's favorite game, I believe. We've played this one for a very, very long time. It was part of my first purchase of games, and it's stuck around for a very, very long time. And then we got the new version. We kept the new version. We went back and forth. We decided. I like the board art of the others, but I like all the other upgrades on this one. So no easy decisions in life. And those no easy decisions will continue. You see GameFound's throwing in a Awakened Realms... Not GameFound. Awakened Realms on GameFound is putting together a newer version of Castles of Burgundy, a deluxe edition that will definitely be prettier. Might be a little too much, I don't know. I'll throw a picture over here so you can, like, in my post or whatnot if I remember, or I'm just waving my hands arbitrarily just saying, hey, there's a picture because I forgot to do it when I was editing this video. Maybe. Or better yet, I'll throw the picture over here the entire time so you can spend 30 seconds laughing at what I was doing. That makes sense. I like that one. I'll go with that option. Or neither, and I totally forgot, in which case that's awkward. GameFound, Awakened Realms. They're putting out a deluxeified version of Castles of Burgundy. I'm looking forward to it, because it's my second favorite game of all time. Why wouldn't I be? But I'm also nervous about... Not nervous. Nervous is nothing to be nervous about. If I don't like it, I'll just keep the original. I'm not getting rid of this one at all. This is a game that I love too much to never have in my collection at any point for even a short time frame. But once the new one arrives, I'll decide, and we'll play it, and we'll decide if it adds value, if it adds complexity, if it adds frustration to the setup time. All those things are possible. We'll figure that out. That's not today's problem. But Castles of Burgundy plays delightfully at 2. Arguably, my favorite player count is at 2. I will also enjoy it at 3. I do not play it at 4 anymore. It's too long and it doesn't add enough value. But it's such a pleasant dice placement game as you figure out how to utilize your dice to grab tiles from the market, to place those tiles on your board, to manage the abilities of all the buildings and tiles and everything else. I love Castles of Burgundy. I'd probably trade one of my children for it if I need. I probably wouldn't. It's a good game. Stefan Feld's my favorite game for Stefan Feld. I also tried Castles of Tuscany. Did not find that nearly as compelling, unfortunately. Castles of Tuscany was a game that I could see what it was going for, a shorter, more streamlined Castles of Burgundy, and I enjoyed it enough to continue keeping it for like a few months, but like we weren't compelled enough to pull it off the shelf. Once we had initially dove into it a few times, we're like, we like it, but we'd just rather play Castles of Burgundy. My number one is and Castles of Burgundy is 2011, by the way. My number one is a 2000 title, like literally the year 2000. It's been around for a very long time, and it's the only game on this list that predates my getting into gaming. But it's a game that I played before I got into gaming, and it's a game that I got once I got into gaming, and it's a game that has stayed in my collection since getting into gaming. It's not my favorite game, not by a long shot, but it's accessible, it's enjoyable, it is fun to play. I like playing with my wife, I like playing with my kids, I like playing with new people who want a gateway experience. It's Carcassonne. Carcassonne, which again has a new reprinted version. It's been the year 2000. I mean, I think at this point we have another one coming. Even I don't even know. It's ridiculous amount of versions they have of this coming out. This one, if you look on Board Game Geek, if you look at the versions tab, there's like 700 versions of Carcassonne. It's ridiculously crazy over the top. This is like, I don't know if it's the original tile placement game, but it's certainly the game that popularized tile placement. This is a game that my brother-in-law got for us well before any of us were into games. We had played games like Catan, and we had played Risk and the Game of Thrones and all other games like that. And my brother-in-law saw this at one point. I don't remember when, but he's like, "Oh, saw this game," and he brought it home, and we started playing Carcassonne, and I really enjoyed it. And then I didn't really think about it much when I left home and started going off on my own, getting married, and going through that whole process. I never really thought about it much more, and I don't even remember when I got it back. I just remember at one point, I got into the hobby, and at some point along the way, I saw Carcassonne, and I was like, that's a hobby game. I'm gonna pick that one up. I'm gonna get that one because we enjoyed it so much. And so I got it. My wife still likes it. My kids still like it. I still have fun playing with it. It's not the best game, not by a long shot, but it's so accessible, rewarding, and enjoyable that it doesn't surprise me that this one has stuck around. And it's outlasted Catan for me. I don't know which one I prefer. They both have their strengths. If you ask me instinctively, I think I prefer Catan, instinctively. But I think I have found other games that do what Catan does in a way that I find more rewarding and more enjoyable, versus Carcassonne has a degree of simplicity and accessibility that makes it easier for many people to dive into, and yet still has a degree of enjoyment around the experience. Carcassonne is the oldest game in my collection, arguably predating my interest in the board game hobby by somewhere around 6-7 years. I'm guessing. I don't have an exact date, but if I got into board games 2011, my brother-in-law probably got it around 2005 or so, somewhere in that range. I don't know exactly how long or when, but it's been around for a very, very long time. And that's it. These are the 10 games, or 14, or 15, depending on how you're counting, of the oldest games in my collection, the ones that have stuck around for a very long time, the ones that have been solid enough for me that even though I've gotten rid of some of these, I've gotten them back. I could see myself getting rid of some of these again. Jambo in particular is one that if we don't continuously playing it, it may just be a nostalgia factor. Jaipur will probably leave as my daughter gets older. I think that's where I stop. I'm not confident that anything else here goes. Le Havre, no. Seven Wonders, no. Dominion, no. Castles of Burgundy, no. Dixit, no. Tuan, no. Kemet, no. Carcassonne, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Ultimately, time will tell. Nothing is really safe. I keep the games that I want to play. I get rid of the games that I don't believe are getting played. Nostalgia is only a factor in the sense that it makes me want to play a game more. But if I'm still not playing the game, I don't have room for games that aren't being played. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.